Yeah, and this is where we've seen so many new AI applications hit the market, right? It's just gone completely mad. So the concept of AI anxiety does exist. I suffer from it quite openly. I'm terrified and excited at the same time, everything that's going on. But what we're talking about there isn't quite artificial general intelligence. I mean, we've got Auto GPT, which people thought would be the closest thing because you've got an artificial intelligence that's prompting itself.
Right, okay, well, hello Beanies and welcome back to Beanies in a Pod. I'm Phil. And we've already forgotten how to do the intro. Incredible. Should we start again? Or...
Daniel, Aaron.
No, I'm pretty sure you go second. It's all right, we're keeping this in.
It's Pad.
Oh, okay.
Pad.
Hello Beanies, welcome back to Beanies in a Pod. I'm Phil.
I'm Aaron. And I'm Daniel.
We got there in the end. And today... we also have a special guest. I have not instructed. What's the word I'm looking for here? I've used a tool here to help me create an intro for you.
Okay. One close to your heart.
One very close to your heart. I've used your LinkedIn About section.
Oh, dearie me.
And I asked ChatGPT to create me a boxing style intro. Using that information. Because why wouldn't you? Yeah. Exactly. So... I'll try and do my best Bruce Buffer impression here, but I'm not sure how this is going to go. Ladies and gentlemen, in the blue corner, we have a financial powerhouse on a mission to transform your systems into superpowers. He's the finance and tech expert who's here to optimize your setup and guide you through the world of AI automation, and he's here to help finance pros unleash their true potential. It's Adam Shilton.
Wow.
Is that it?
Best intro ever.
There we go. You can thank ChatGPT for that one.
You didn't edit it at all?
I edited it a tiny bit.
Okay, fine.
The tiniest amount.
Just the words. the sequence.
All of the words.
The prose.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Had to cut out a few things because it didn't quite understand what a boxing intro was, but that's fine.
Never understands the context.
90% of it was right. I'll say that.
No, it was very good. I enjoyed it.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. And in fact, the good thing about it is it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to give you an insight.
That's true.
It's like a start point, isn't it? Yeah. Because if you'd have sat down and think, right, how do I do a boxed intro? You'd have been there for an hour.
Yeah, probably.
Whereas you got that in 10 minutes.
Yeah, maybe less than that.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's like a card. It doesn't have to take us to the door. It just needs to take us to the area. You walk to the rest, don't you?
Is that a great analogy?
That's a great analogy.
Perfect analogy.
Doesn't get you to where you want to go. Gets you nearby where you want to go.
Well, it does, doesn't it? Gets you to a car park. Doesn't get you to the shop you want to go to.
Isn't that more like a train or a bus?
Potato.
Okay.
Slightly off topic, but that's fine.
You got in all the best bits anyway. That's the important bit.
Right. I mean, we may as well just take ChatGPT and go straight into... Let's open up the conversation about that. I was going to try and do a better segue, but we'll go with it. So you use ChatGPT quite a lot, don't you? From your LinkedIn profile, as I've seen quite a lot of your content.
You've almost built a mini industry around it, I'd say.
Yeah. I'm not the only one.
No,
not at all.
Do you know what? You're one of the ones that's doing it really well, though.
Thank you. It's one of those. I lost my Christmas to it. So back into last year, because it had been, I can't remember officially when it was released, maybe November 2022. I can't remember the exact date. So technically I was behind because I didn't even know it was coming. And then
some people still haven't looked at it.
Yeah,
don't worry.
Yeah, that's it. And it popped up somewhere, probably in LinkedIn. I thought, this is potentially a bit of a game changer. So shut myself away. And that was version 3.5 before the more intelligent version came along. And I just went through a phase of asking it questions. I didn't do the standard, can I catch it out? Can I get it to tell me silly things? But what I did try and do is I started with the supplementing knowledge thing. So I thought, right, well, imagine I'm trying to speak to somebody in an industry that I've not spoken to before ever. And I'm trying to do a bit of prep because that's where I spend quite a lot of my time. How accurate can it get in giving me a hint into some of the challenges sorry, I just hit the microphone there, sorry, bong. and then just give me a bit of that context to then inform where my line of questioning could go, and immediately it came back with something pretty intelligent. And I thought this is very different to the predictive text style AI that we'd seen in the past. And then I immediately started asking networks questions. So I'd seen sort of a Q&A facility in Power BI ages ago, right? Whereby you could say, right, well, tell me this information or plot these trends or whatever. And it's kind of a similar thing that's already built into all its systems, right? But I think the fundamental shift with chat, the emphasis being the chat, was that it was your own conversation with something that had a huge amount of knowledge that wasn't chained to something that already existed. And I think the best summary that I can think of, and this was given by a guest called John, who's a co-founder of a company called Sturpy over in the US. He said the most important thing to bear in mind with ChatGPT is, by nature of the fact that it's a chat interface, it is restricted to respond in the way that you would as you were instant messaging someone, right? GPT, i.e. a generative language or a large language model, is unrestricted in terms of there's a vast amount of data there. So what OpenAI and Google with the Bard application and all that sort of stuff is they've essentially trained their front end to say if you ask it a question, it's gonna bring back these answers. But pretty soon after playing with 3.5 or the iteration of 3.5, you could start seeing its limitations. So the more you'd ask it and the more detailed you try or the more detailed the questions you try and ask, the more consistently kind of generic the responses would be. So you get your first question and you think, oh, holy shit, this is amazing. And then pretty soon you get further down the rabbit hole and then find that it was bringing back similar responses every time. And that's when I got into the territory of, right, well, am I asking it the wrong questions? Because ask a generic question, get a generic answer. It's the same if you ask a person a question without context. How would you expect a good answer if you don't frame the question in the right way? And that's where the whole premise of prompt engineering came in. That was a massive buzzword, and it still kind of is, whereby people are thinking, oh, I can help build a livelihood telling people how to engineer prompts. And then, of course, there were then databases where people could upload their prompts and make a load of money from all of that sort of stuff. And that's how I got into, right, well, how do I ask better questions? So it kind of dropped off for a little bit. I won't say it was a phase, because I did still use it as part of every day, because it was still really good at generating baseline document templates, for example. If you've got something that can feed you, as we discussed with the boxing intro, give you a starting point that you can then elaborate on. It's cut out a load of that front end work, so you can just focus on the tweaking and the important stuff, right? So I started using it in that sense, and then pretty much immediately, I can't remember, maybe was it March time that the GPT-4 model came out?
Yeah, I think it was March.
Yeah. And then it was just a whole new world, because immediately you had a more intelligent model that could understand more detailed questions better. Because, and without getting too technical, the GPT models, when you're chatting with them, have a token limit. And a token, or a number of tokens, is essentially how much data it can process before it can't process anymore. So early generations, you try and copy and paste an entire PDF document and ask a question based on that data. It come back and say, sorry, you've run out of tokens. We can't consume this amount of data. With GPT-4, that then expanded to be able to enable it to handle more complex queries. So that's when prompt engineering, in inverted commas, went up a level, because with that added intelligence, you could then ask more complex queries or prompt in a more advanced way. So immediately, people then started thinking about how do we structure this? And I put a bit of a framework together that's in the Ultimate GPT framework for finance. Shameless plug.
That's all right.
Which basically is just a bit of guidance. It's why it's a framework to say, you do need to ask AI questions in a different way to that you'd ask a human, because humans get context, because we have that experience. We work in certain industries, we work with specific solutions. So if I'm speaking to Dan about AI and automation, we know that the topic immediately is going to be AI and automation, right? Whereas if you're just asking a question to an AI, it doesn't know the situation that it's in. So that's the first element. What is the situation that we're framing, which is where that act as Yeah, so if you give it a situation and you give it a skill to assume, it can immediately narrow it down. And the analogy that I give in the framework is fishing, right? You say to a fisherman, go find me a fish, right? They go to the ocean. There's a lot of fish, right? Say, find me a whitefish. Okay, we're getting better, but there's still quite a lot of whitefish in the ocean, right? Find me a whitefish native to the Pacific that's edible that I can batter and shove in my face. Then we're getting a lot more specific, and we're narrowing down the variables. Large language models work in exactly the same way. So it's that trick of focusing that attention on the bits that's actually going to be useful. So you've got the situation, the skill that you want it to assume, and then the instruction. And this is where I found the biggest shift between the 3.5 and the 4 model is you could be a lot more explicit with your instructions in breaking up that prompt. So act as whatever the skill is that you want to assume, please produce, and listing bullet points is already good, really good. So, I want you to include X, Y, and Z in your response, and then giving examples, giving the output format, present it to me as a table and all of those sorts of things. So I won't go through the entire framework, but the point is for every step of that framework, you are further narrowing down what you want that output to be. Better quality question, better output. All right. Then the next phase of that, and I'm still working on this, so there will be a ChatGPT plugin guide coming up pretty soon, is how do we expand that even further? And this is where it starts to get a little bit scary, namely down to data and that whole security piece. Do you really want to connect this level of intelligence to other applications? And that is where you then expand the capability of a large language model, and then you link it to another tool whereby either the user interface or the means of getting to the output that you want from that tool is prohibitive just by nature of the tool, right? So one of the posts that you may have seen was when I basically created an FP&A tool using ChatGPT and a solution called Notable.
Yeah.
And Notable at the moment I think is still free. I don't know whether there's plans to monetize it, probably. But you can get ChatGPT to instruct Notable on how you want to make sense of data. So you can put in unstructured data into Notable, whether it be a CSV or from another database that you can connect. And then you ask ChatGPT to create the charts, create the visualizations and all of that sort of stuff. So you're chatting with your data to produce an output without having to know how to code, how to use machine learning models and all of that sort of stuff. So some of the examples are, I've got a load of AP transactions, I've got a load of invoices, I don't know where I'm spending, I don't know who my most costly suppliers are and all that sort of stuff. To save you having to get that data out, format it, I don't know, put it in another tool like a Power BI or whatever, you just give it the raw data and you say this is the outcome that I'm trying to achieve, so split this expenditure by supplier. Yeah. What's also quite good about that is there's a level of intelligence that says, even if the data is not structured correctly, I can structure it for you. Yeah. So another exercise I did with my team it was on raw call data, right? Because we wanted to know when the most successful times of actually connecting with real people was, as opposed to leaving voicemails and all that sort of stuff. The data I had had a merged column that included date and time. It hadn't split it into AM or PM or anything like that. But I asked ChatGPT, connected to Notable, that I want you to tell me success of morning versus afternoon, for example. And it said, I can't do that because you've got a merge column that includes two variables. But don't worry, I'll split that out for you. And it did the formatting of the data to then produce the visualization off the back of it. Yeah. So if I just quickly summarize that in terms of evolution, we've gone from a point of 3.5, and I appreciate this is ChatGPT focused. Obviously, there are other large language models out there where it was still very intelligent. It could do a lot of that heavy lifting from a generation of text perspective, to 4, which is a lot more intelligent, whereby you can get a lot better output based on larger prompts and more complex queries. And now we're at the point where we can chain that GPT-4 model to other applications to use those applications as almost a slave, or make ChatGPT the slave to that application to basically do your bidding in whatever format. So that's just one example of one tool you can use with it, but plugins are growing every day. So that's my focus at the moment. That's maybe a long description of my journey today, but yeah, there we go. That's where we are.
So that's question 1 of 27.
Sorry.
The thing I find though,
Sorry, the one thing before we continue, I'm getting a bit of feedback on my mic. Can you see that on your end?
I think I'm hearing it as well, but I'm not sure.
Bit of
I'm
buzz.
not really sure what that is.
Maybe turn it down a touch.
Because normally it's...
Turn the headphone down a touch.
I haven't heard it.
You've got a dodgy connector, maybe.
No, because I still had it when the headphones were mine are plugged out here. I was getting it when the headphones are in.
You still getting that?
Yeah.
What is it? Okay.
It's like
It's a buzz.
Yeah.
buzz.
I'm
Yeah,
getting
very
that
low.
a little bit, but I can get rid of that in editing. I can
Okay.
isolate that and get rid of it, so don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. Sorry about
It's
That's
all
all right.
Daniel, please continue. I rudely interrupted you.
No, not at all. No, I was going to say, so I always still equate ChatGPT to either a new employee or the receptionist,
Hmm.
right? Because it's a generalist.
Uh-huh.
You want a very, and I think it's weird because we always think, oh, ChatGPT is not very good because you have to be very specific. But actually, it's no different to dealing with people. If you get a brand new person who comes to the office and say, right, get those month-end reports out, they get month-end reports out, but it's not necessarily going to be what you want because they don't have context. They don't have pretext. They don't have all the understanding, the assumed knowledge that most of us operate under.
Hmm.
And even when you do, I mean, we've been working together a long time, and if I still say, you know, let's do so-and-so, unless I'm very specific still in terms of what that looks like and articulating, and Phil's familiar with this, but if I really articulate what I'm really looking for, it still won't necessarily be what I want. So it's still no different. It's no worse. It's probably better, but it's no worse than the human to human in that sense, is it? So it's still very much a generalist. I don't know where it becomes a specialist to the extent that you don't have to basically treat it like a new employee every time you talk to it. And I don't know where or if, because I don't even necessarily call that general intelligence, because I don't think it is, because I don't think even people, we think of general intelligence, this still doesn't cover that.
Yeah.
But where do you get to the point where, and this is something we've been exploring a little bit, is to get to that point where you don't have to re-explain everything every time. That's what we're sort of using on bots to overcome the having to explain it every time.
Yeah.
And try and work it, but it's still not there. It's still...
Yeah, and this is where we've seen so many new AI applications hit the market, right? It's just gone completely mad. So the concept of AI anxiety does exist. I suffer from it quite openly. I'm terrified and excited at the same time, everything that's going on. But what we're talking about there isn't quite artificial general intelligence. I mean, you know, we've got Auto GPT, which people thought would be the closest thing because you've got an artificial intelligence that's prompting itself. But I've done a bit with that, and it's still not great because it gets confused, it gets caught up, and, you know, often doesn't end up at the outputs that you'd expect. But I'm sure somebody's already developing something that's way better anyway. I just don't know about it yet. But what we're talking about there is a large language model in a context. So going back to what I said about chat, or the chat of the ChatGPT being the model trained to respond to chat. And we saw some developers trying to hack ChatGPT when it first came out by asking questions on how were you programmed, what are your parameters, yeah, and some of them succeeded, and it said, you know, this was my initial prompt to produce the outputs, and it could be stuff like, you know, I can't respond with any information that is destructive or, you know, would do bad in the world and all that sort of stuff. So ChatGPT isn't just a free reign access to all of the data. It is still tempered. And what we're going to start seeing more and more of is other organizations training that large language model with their own version of the chat interface that is set in more of a context. And some people have been doing this already. So Chris Bell, who Dan knows, he trained a bot to interact quite well with Zero, right? And for him, it was all about how do we make sure that the response that we get from that bot is relevant to accountants, so it understands more of those financial terms. I think we'll just see an increase in that, whereby, and I kind of see a situation where, coming back to what you said there, Dan, about employing people, whereby you employ AIs in the same way as you would as a person. Yeah. So
train it,
yeah,
give it context, pretext, all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so you go to market and you say, instead of hiring for an employee, you know, it's going to be lower cost and more efficient to buy a preset AI that is trained on this specific function. And I've done it already. So for the podcast, just use it. It's not a finance example, but podcast example. There's a company called Podium.Page. And they've done exactly that. They've taken a model and they've said, right, well, when somebody puts a transcript into this model, we're going to pre-program it so it automatically generates show notes that are interesting to people listening to podcasts. We're going to get it to produce a chapter summary from the time code, and that's all preset. So you're not having to go, to a, plugin that's tied up to a PDF to say, ChatGPT, write me a chapter summary. That is already pre-trained in the model to produce that output for you. And I think we're just going to end up seeing more and more of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Which is what we've been talking about all the time. It's a great generalist tool, and the technology underneath it is brilliant. But you've got to train your own data. You've got to build your own data models, build your own data databases. At some point have your own private instance and connect them up, and then you'll get what you really need and want. But the challenge is always data and training and adding as much as possible, isn't it? Because it's the same thing with people. You try to set the norms and cultures and values, and people will operate within, sometimes outside, and it'll be the same thing with AI. You'll establish those parameters, and sometimes they'll go outside, sometimes they'll stick within. Sometimes the results will be surprisingly pleasant and interesting. Other times they may not be. And you've got to deal with it in the same way. So we've almost, and I don't think anyone's there yet, but developing the framework for how you actually engage and incorporate AI into your organizations to work side by side with people. That's not really come to the fore yet. We're all grappling with making it work as opposed to how and why we should make it work. But that's probably got to come. What do you think's next? So what do you think Cummins' future?
I think
next version.
I think that is the next iteration of how people will engage better with AI. So I have no idea what the next iteration of large language models are, only that they will become more intelligent, and maybe we can come back to the concept of artificial general intelligence, which is a bit of a spooky subject. But
do you think it's going to happen? Well, I don't know.
It will. It's just a case of when. But no, I think in the short term, there's already ways that people can build their own bots. And of course, it's your industry, right? So you know about this, but there's already applications whereby you can use pre-existing large language models to interact with your data. So I use the example of Notable, which is kind of that, but that's with a specific purpose. So we're talking about financial data or whatever data you connect to the platform there. But the difficulty is that there's still a bit of a learning curve, and for those sorts of niche use cases, you probably have to end up training, everybody that uses it. Everybody's got to have a ChatGPT license. Everybody's got to have access to Notable, and they've got to know the questions to ask to get the outputs, right? So, but I think what's coming next is a situation where, and to use a finance example, right? So finance teams all the time get bombarded by random requests from the rest of the company. When are you going to pay expenses? Can you give me this report? Can you give me this data? I think the next move is to say, right, well, what is that Q&A type knowledge base that we can build that's going to allow people to self-serve? Yeah. The data implications here, need to be, considered very carefully. So any tool that you do investigate, make sure that you do rigorously look at the data policy. But the theory is that you create your own internal environment for a chatbot. You make sure that all of your data points are synced, whether it's sales data from CRM, finance data from a finance system, and you give a very simple front end, in theory, to all of your employees tied to your data, whereby they can just chat to it. Yeah. So instead of going to the finance team, and soak up a load of their time with low value generic responses, they can just self-serve. But the difficulty again there is the training piece of that, and I think that's the big gap, because you can tie your data to a model in tools that already exist to do that Q&A piece, but does that model understand your business? Does it understand your business objectives?
Well, there's another and potentially massive, much bigger problem, and this is actually relevant because of the accountants and being bookkeepers that are going to watch this podcast. We're actually hearing people we're talking to, companies we talk to, both on the enterprise, so large enterprises, but also the firms and accounting firms that we talk to. They're actually blacklisting it. They're actually not allowing anyone in the organization to connect to it because of security, privacy, confidentiality, data. So that's a major I think no one's actually doing anything about that I can see at the moment. No one's actually doing anything about how do we minimize it? How do you anonymize data? Is there a safe way to use it? They just say no one uses it, blacklist it. It simply won't work. What you see in other companies, how are you seeing them getting around that? Or are they not even attacking it? Or are they just bring it on board and hope for the best?
It varies business to business. So yes, some organizations have blacklisted it, because the risk of using it outweighs the benefit. So life is risk, right? Or there's always a consideration for risk. Some countries have still banned it.
Yeah.
So I was speaking to a dude from Bahrain yesterday evening, because he was saying, I've got no idea about AI. Give me some instructions. I don't know what to do. I said, right, well, first we've got to look at the problem. Where's most of your time going? And then I had a quick Google whilst I was on the phone to him saying, is ChatGPT available in Bahrain? And it said, no. Anyway, so I was on the phone and I said, just check in. Do you even have access to this? And he was like, technically no, but we do.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, fine. So if the want is there, then no amount of restriction is going to stop people from accessing it in some way.
Someone's messing with their IP address, aren't they?
Absolutely. And I didn't ask the question. Ask no questions here, no lies.
I'm waiting for the landmark case where an employee gets dismissed for breach of, and God knows where it ends.
Yeah, well, we had to go through a training exercise as a business. Obviously, I'm a big advocate of AI.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Did I mention that?
No.
Anyway, so I was asked to give a presentation on how AI was likely to shift the way that we work, right? And I've told this story on my podcast before, so if there is any crossovers, people may have heard this story before. But I thought, okay, right, if I'm doing a presentation about AI, how can I surprise and delight and get the light bulb to turn on? So I went through the presentation. It was in a slightly different format. It wasn't on brand. I wasn't using the same old template that we used a million times before. And it was about 12 slides, combination of bullet points, images, and all of that sort of stuff. People were quite engaged. And then about halfway through the presentation, there were a couple of lines which I'd done a strike through on. And I did a bit of a hat tip to it. I said, don't worry about those lines that have been crossed out. I'll come back to them at the end. So I continued with the presentation. And then the penultimate page was just one line that said 90% of this presentation has been generated by AI. And everybody was like, holy shit. The room just went silent. And the process that I used for that, and there's all sorts of tools that you can do for this now, is I gave the outline to ChatGPT, or I got ChatGPT to give me the outline. So I said, this is the theme of the conversation. Give me 12 slides with associated bullet points for discussion points, that I can use as a frame for this presentation. So I didn't ask it to give me all of the content, just part of the content. And then I used a tool called Gamma. I think it's gamma.app. And I fed that outline into Gamma. And then Gamma did the rest. So Gamma added more detail to the points, and it did the design work, and it did all of the branding. I used it for next meeting as well. I had a last-minute meeting that I had to present at, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this in time. I'll just get Gamma to do it. And then I did all of the images in Midjourney. Yeah, so literally all of that presentation was AI generated and I did try and emulate one of my employees wearing like a VR headset using AI unsuccessfully, because I'm not good at prompting images. I'm good at prompting text, but I'm not good at prompting images. I'll put
I don't think anyone is actually.
Yeah.
It seems to be a real art form.
Absolutely. And again, when the kids were keeping me up in the middle of the night, that was another rabbit hole with the Midjourney prompting there. So, but we don't need to go into that. But the concept
that sounds worse than I'm sure it is. I put midnight generating images. That just sounds
Let's not go there. But the point is that kind of then spurred a chain reaction in the organisation that said we would have had no idea whether that was produced by a human or an AI, right? And the strike through text was the text that the AI produced that was incorrect. And that's why I said 90%, because it was only those couple of points that I had to take out, right? But that chain reaction then led to how do we keep tabs on this? How do we police this? So we went through an exercise in basically sending a form to all of the team just to let us know whether they were or weren't using ChatGPT, just so that we could make sure that we were providing the correct guidelines, because I've got no issues with it, providing it's used in the right way and that people are being sensitive with data. So, and sometimes I'll speak to it and I won't even refer to myself in this, and I'll say, you are doing this. So I'll turn it the other way. So it's not got any details on me. It's just acting as though it is the protagonist of the story, or whatever the term is. But it's the same for if you had a query or you wanting to generate an email outline, which I don't recommend. I don't like AI generated emails, full stop. I don't agree with them. But that then led to a chain of thought.
That's interesting. I'm coming back to that.
Yeah, okay, fine. Anyway, so that comes back to the anonymized piece, right? So there's no harm in using the AI to give support, providing you're not giving the game away, because you can read the data protection policies and you can switch off the don't use this data to train the model, but you can never be sure, right? So that anonymization is really important. So I think if there's a takeaway there, if you are aware of people in the organization using it, there just needs to be a training plan in place so that they are sensitive in the way that they use it. You know, generic stuff, easy. Produce me a template for an employee onboarding document, or produce me a matrix that I can use for my next year budget or whatever, you know, with these rows and these columns. That's all pretty standard stuff, right? But as soon as you start then feeding in information about either customers, suppliers, or your own business, that's where I'd encourage people just to pause and see whether there's any way that you can anonymize that a bit.
I mean, on the general stuff, I guess it's on anything, but on the general stuff as well, like that. But there is always going to be bias as well, and it's easy for us to say how and when we're using it, but with so many cultures and stuff on and companies, and you're getting a biased experience effectively. So it does have limitations in that sense, and those biases will be based in, and those biases may not be necessarily really, really bad personal negative things, inhumane negative things, but they could be biased on, you know, westernized ways of looking at finance and budget and debt. So you could allow a lot of bias to creep into things that you could just, you know, give me a budget template, but that might actually lead you in a road that you don't necessarily want to be. It might not be applicable. Again, it comes back to those specific prompts, pretext, context of what you need, and there's going to be limitations on what OpenAI is going to do today versus what it might do in 10 years. And partly because, you know, you mentioned there Bahrain, they've closed it off, and other countries, and so it's actually not getting a broader learning aspect because it's not getting to interact with other cultures. So that's a major limitation. That's gonna, and it's more evasive. Everyone has to be aware that these things exist, and that as you're using it, it's not the be all and end all. It's a guide, it's an aid, an enabler, but you've got to be aware of the things and the limitations on it. And I think that's the thing, is it's great and it's sexy and it's now, but a lot of people aren't aware of the downsides and the restrictions on it, and not just it doesn't give me the right answer. That's just one aspect of it, but I think there's a lot of aspects of it that people are not ignorant of, but they're not aware of. They're not aware of the bias that AI has that we're creating. And it's an ethical one. It's one of those horrible debates, ones you can probably spend, and people are spending forever talking about, and I don't think we're ever going to get a sensible answer. And until it's embraced by everybody or nobody, it's not going to be, it's never going to get there, is it?
Well, that's part of the problem, I think. A lot of people, there's a stigma around AI, isn't there?
Yeah.
And they're just like, rather than try and learn about it or learn how to utilize it, they're just like we've just said, some companies just blacklisting it straight away and just been like, no. But they probably don't realize that model is also being used in several other tools. It's not just ChatGPT. Like, that's not the only where it is. So you're better off training people how to use it and understanding it, rather than just being like, don't use this one tool, and then they're just going to go off and use something else.
Yeah, it's like ignoring global warming. You know, yeah, you could say, well, it doesn't affect me. I'm good. But it does. You know, we're a global community, and whether you like it or not, it's going to affect you. So you've got to embrace it. You've got to understand it. You've got to get to grips with it. And that's why people like you become really important, because you are pushing it forward. You are driving the agenda, and you're forcing people to consider it, become more aware of it, and that's a brilliant thing. I mean, we need more of this, because it's here. Whether you like it or not, if you get up in the morning, you switch your music on, your TV on, you book a holiday, it doesn't matter what you do, you're already engaging with it. So it's important to understand it, and applause to you for taking this on as well. So because it's important, but we need more people doing it, and the awareness needs to be heightened.
Yeah, and I think coming back to the point about bias and just being sensitive of the results that it's giving to you, I think to us who have got the war wounds, who knew of a world before AI existed, it's not so much of an issue.
You don't look old enough.
I feel it. But no, so if a human said to us something that was just downright wrong, we'd say that's bollocks.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's one of those where, because, well, some people are silly, but the majority of us aren't silly. We have the wherewithal about us to say, no, I don't agree with that, or what you've just given me there is incorrect, right? So I think the same goes for AI. If it does give you something that is, irrelevant or just downright incorrect, we still have the capacity to say not relevant.
Yeah.
I think what we need to be mindful of, and this is, again, where the AI anxiety comes in, again, without getting too personal, we were talking about it before we started the podcast. I'm not sleeping at the moment because I've got a 1-year-old and a 2.5-year-old that have decided that they're just going to be really hungry at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? But I think about them all the time because they're growing up with YouTube. They are being programmed effectively by the videos that they are watching, the colours, the sights and the sounds, and any adverts that turn up within that. And that is all AI, because there's an algorithm that's feeding that to them. So whether you like it or not, just by watching YouTube, there's an element of programming that an organization is trying to push on you. It's the same when you're scrolling on your LinkedIn feed and all that sort of stuff. The only way to get away from that is if you decided that you were going to become a recluse. You set up your VPN, you turned off all your cookies. Some people do this and there's no issue with it, and say, look, I'm just not going to put myself online in a way that other organizations or big organizations can track my data. And it comes back to the data point, because yes, everybody's up in arms about saying, I don't want to give information to this organization. I don't want it to learn from my data. But in reality, there's probably hundreds of companies that have got hundreds, if not thousands, of data points on you already as an individual and as a business. So I think we just need to be mindful of that. Yes, data is a concern, but at the same time, it's not been a concern with all of the other cloud applications and social media platforms you've been on for the past 10 years. So, but coming back to the kids, the reason I mentioned that point is, to us, with experience, and knowing of the previous world before AI, where we learn in a very structured way, and we learn from essentially proven history books, or but even then there's an argument to say that books could be biased. Yeah, absolutely, books could be biased as well. And obviously there's all sorts of arguments about
it's
traditional
flawed.
education.
AI is basically flawed because it's based on us.
Yeah.
And we're fundamentally flawed, and that's the problem. I think you need just to accept that there's flaws, just like us. Accept it, but become aware and educate yourself. That's the critical thing, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. But coming back to the education piece for the kids, is that if they grow up with AI, and they're chatting to an AI bot to do whatever, and the AI is feeding them information that is then training them and educating them, how are they going to know whether that's right or wrong, whether that's accurate or inaccurate? So because their brains are going to be molded by whatever technology they are consuming the most of.
And I think fundamentally it hasn't actually changed, because we've always been that way. We've just been influenced by a person or groups of people. It's just that the access now is scarier than ever before, because you can get it 24/7, 365. From everywhere, anywhere. There's hidden agendas, and that's probably the problem. It's always been that way. We're finding a much easier and mass way to influence people. And it's a scary world. For our kids and your kids and their kids. Lord knows.
On that point, do you think there's certain situations, certain times that maybe AI shouldn't be looked at as a solution, whether it be just human can do it better, or morally it's best to leave that away from.
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah.
Mind you, we don't do much of a
No.
better job, in fairness, do we?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's the thing. We're really harsh on AI, but actually we're just shit ourselves. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no,
sorry,
that-
but we are.
that's-
we are. We're
that-
useless.
Yeah, it's easy to be harsh because it's not a person, isn't it? It's
We're
easy to
terrible.
say.
Yeah, but yeah. We're more critical of AI than we are ourselves. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
Chris Bell,
Yeah.
he raised that on previous podcasts, and he's dead right. You know, we
Yeah.
hold AI to higher standards
Than we hold ourselves.
Than we hold ourselves. You know, which is fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, in most instances, and this is always my recommendation. Yeah, I mean, in theory, I'm on the bleeding edge because you know I'm living and breathing this every day. But there still always has to be that decision before you get too immersed in anything to say, is this the right move or not?
Mm.
Because
we don't do that though, do we?
Yeah.
We always ask why rather than should we.
Yeah.
How
And-
do we rather than should we?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And we see other people doing it. We think, well, I should be doing
Can't be
that.
left behind.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that fear of missing out again,
Yeah,
isn't
that
it?
FOMO, you know.
So basically, to sum up, we're all. Is that what another bleep for you there, Phil. We're all
Rack
yeah.
them up.
So I've got to come back. The email. Come back.
No,
Okay,
you
fine.
know,
fine.
Tell me. Come on, justify yourself. AI is wonderful, but not for emails. Come on now.
No, so an old boss of mine years ago, he had a really good way of dealing with communication, and he'd split his mind to say, look, this is the time for this is the time for that, and he'd almost assume sort of different personas for different types of work. So he'd often say, because he had a crazy work ethic, and I'm not recommending that people work all hours, but he said, I only ever do emails either really early in the morning or really late at night, and I batch them all at one go. But I treat an email in the same way that I would send a handwritten letter to someone. Yeah, it needs to be thought about. Yeah, there needs to be some sort of outcome. Yeah, I don't want it to be mindless. And I've got a background in sales. You know, everybody knows this. So I've done the 100 cold calls a day. You know, I've done the 100 cold emails a day. And I've also been on the other side of that, you know, getting cold emails of, you know, bots trawling my LinkedIn profile and then putting a message together. And you can spot it a mile off if you know about it. But of course, there's a load of people that don't know whether it's AI generated or not. But the reason that I fundamentally disagree with it is because when you have a human interaction, there should be something there that an AI isn't able to create for you. Yeah, so if I'm sending a personal email to you, Dan, it's based on our interactions today. It's not about anything that an AI can pick up in the ether or from your profile or anything like that. It's specifically relevant to you, and I want to know that I've produced that as a human to a human. Yeah, I'm not a fan of, and it's built into loads of stuff now. It's all over the place. So the email application I use is something called Spark, which is really good. Tie multiple inboxes together, you know, so if you're working with multiple emails, it's really good. But it's also got a really good way of categorizing, I guess, similar to Gmail, where it's got personal emails, i.e. one-to-one, notifications from updates from other systems that are sending you alerts, and then newsletters. Yeah, and you can really easily batch them, archive them really quickly. So in theory, you get to inbox 0 every day, which I'm a big fan of. But they've now built an AI tool into it, whereby somebody sends you an email, and instead of having to go to ChatGPT, copying the email and saying, can you write a considered response to this? You just click AI and it will generate a response for you. And I'm thinking, well, if AI can generate a response, why am I replying in the first place? Do you see what I mean? You know, the only application where I can see that as useful is to say, thank you, I have registered your email, I will get back to you. Do you see what I mean? You know, but to then have it say, oh, I'm going to, you know, pretend it's me and write a considered response as a sign of respect to the person on the other side, I'm not going to call it laziness, but I want to be able to prove that I'm somebody worth communicating with.
No, I get that. I get that.
I think it is almost laziness though in that aspect. If you're replying to someone,
partly.
but if it's a reply to an email, and you're literally just pressing a button that
well,
just
you
looks
say
through
that,
the questions
but
and generates it.
I once saw a demo, and this was an automation conference about 5 years ago, and because back then we were actually looking at generative AI chatbots, and they played a video. It was an audio track of someone ringing into the sales support team and the support engineer or agent having a conversation. And they played this whole thing out along with the text. And at the end of it, they said, was the agent a
Reading
real
from a
person
script. Oh.
or an artificial? And everyone said it was a robot, and it was actually a person.
Oh, was it just they reading from a script?
Yeah,
Reading from a script.
Mm.
Yeah.
yeah. So it's not
But
a new.
I think
It's
that's,
not a new.
I think that's the same though
yeah.
as what we were just talking about then.
Yeah, but it demonstrates that it's that point of where you've got all these people ringing in. What's the most efficient way to deal with them? Are they just a number and you just want to get it and turn it in, or is every single thing a personal conversation? And the answer is it obviously depends.
It does depend.
Yeah.
And to come back on the support piece, to me, an AI-generated email, if we are using a system for support, we'd know that it wasn't coming from a person because it's a ticket desk or something like that. So AI generating those sorts of ticket updates, I mean, it's not even AI generated, is it? It's just automation, you know, and that sort of stuff.
Well, it depends. It depends. But though, having said that, with the latest and the next version of OpenAI to come, for example, where it's actually learning how Adam Shilton thinks, learns, communicates, would we not be in a situation where you would think, well, actually, it's actually answering the way that I would have done? That's probably coming.
That's a bit meta.
The thing I'd worry about
coming.
with that, right? If you had that,
It's that duplication of you, that triplicate of you
Yeah, and
that you always wanted.
Then we're into the territory of, I'll get my AI to speak to your AI.
Exactly.
well, that's the thing. And also, you're just getting to the point where, like, what's the point of me even opening up my emails and looking at them? Because, like, my AI is just going to reply to all of them anyway.
Yeah. The thing is, though, what
then,
it's going to
like-
come down to
like,
is whether or not it does a better job than you.
I know, but can you imagine, like, imagine you've already got your day all planned out and you're like, I don't have time to look at my emails today. Oh, I don't have to worry about it because, like, Philbot's going to go through and reply to everyone anyway.
He's
And then
accepted Philbot, by the way. Did you hear that? That was publicly.
Then you... I'm not wearing the costume. And then you end up having conversations with people that you're not actually talking to. Like, where does it stop?
Until the point where you need to.
Yes.
You could say the same thing about
I suppose.
sequences. That you do automated sequences of outreach and lead.
And that's been around for years as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
it's another evolution of it, really. I mean, grappling with it.
Yeah. So take so it's just an extension, right? So website chatbots, whether it's customer service, sales, fill in the gap. We've had for a number of years the ability to click on the pop-up. What is the nature of your query? And then, as you know, you could get queried by a bot, and it announces itself as a bot to say, before you speak to a person, is there anything that I can help with?
Yeah.
And I quite like that.
Yeah.
Because being an introvert by nature, doesn't sound like it.
Doesn't feel like you're sharing with
Because I talk a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
The theory is that if that can give me the quickest answer, quickest accurate answer, I'm absolutely fine with that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not the sort of person that says I only want to get an answer from a human being. You know, because I'm all about efficiency. I'm not about that sort of thing. I think what we'll see with the next iteration of AI is that process just extends. So you will have more time with a more intelligent bot that can answer more complex queries. So coming to the software space, I've got a support query. The system's not doing something that it should do, right? And we're already seeing this with some of the more advanced support systems anyway. I type into the chatbot, I've got an issue with this journal or this invoice or this isn't posting. The AI can search for similar queries in the background, for similar terminology. It will look at the backlog of previously resolved cases. And instead of just sending you to a knowledge base like they might do already, which is basically pre-canned, human-generated text articles as a troubleshooting exercise or a frequently asked question, it then says, oh, well, here are some scenarios that have fixed this issue in the past. Do you want to try these before you speak to a person? Yeah.
Okay.
And that enables you to scale more easily with a leaner team. Yeah. So instead of having to employ another person to soak up the first line support queries, you've got an AI doing it instead. And that will just continue to the next iteration until we've replaced ourselves. And I don't understand why we are so intent on replacing ourselves as people, but it probably comes down to the cash, doesn't it? There's money to be made.
Probably within certain things. Because to be honest with you, someone sitting there engaging in one-way conversation like that is really not beneficial for a person engaging on either side, to be honest with you. It's not really fulfilling. It's not great for well-being. It's not great for your mental health. You're basically just sitting there doing one after another after another. That's not really a job that we probably... It goes back to having children in Victorian factories. It's not really something that what people really want to be doing. They're not going to jump out of bed in the morning. Oh, I can't wait to deal with those 557 messages. No one wants to do that, especially their generation and the one that coming on, your kids. They're going to be less inclined to want to do really boring, mundane, crappy, unfulfilling work that. Yeah. So actually, it's more up for me. It's all about, absolutely, let's replace us with every single thing that is crap.
Yeah.
And let's actually look to the future, the things that we could actually do better. We could do more of, the things that will be more fulfilling, more rewarding for us, for our customers, for the society at whole. Why not? I mean, I'm in favour of replacing all of it.
Yeah.
In fact, years ago, like that same customer agent, I know we need to move on at some point, but that same customer agent thing, we used to work with we still do, but we used to work with a company called Humley that did conversational AI. And I'm talking 5-6 years ago. Back then, they had an AI chatbot. This is probably the right term, but that at that time engaged in small talk. It could ask, but the good thing is you knew from an IP address or whatever, you knew where they were based. So it could ask you, "Oh, see, it's raining there in Devon today," or the sun's just coming out, or bear with it. It knew where you
were. Go away, you
creep.
Yeah,
exactly. And you could engage in small talk. If it's coming into a customer service department, like we so much about, like, because back to the point of data, so much about a customer today. Their spending habits, what they do. You know everything about a person that you need to know to engage in small talk. Probably more than the person does. And that was 5-6 years ago. So there's just, there's so much more we can do. So I'm amazed actually that we're not further ahead. To be honest with you, I'm actually surprised we're not even further ahead than we were. And I think a lot of it is adoption, because of the anxiety. And other things, the fear factor, definitely, that's an issue.
Yeah, that's it. We're used to what we're used to, right?
Yeah.
And we get into a routine and we don't want things to change because of the fear and all of that sort of stuff. And that will never go away. It's human nature to avoid things that are potentially risky. But it's a mindset shift, because actually in people not doing anything now, that to me is a riskier strategy than doing something.
It's a head in the sand approach and hoping that everything's going to be fine when you come out, absolutely. And of course it's not.
And I think if people look hypercritically, and not everybody does this, but we can say, it would be great to automate this, that, and the other, and on face value, we kind of think, right, well, I add quite a lot of value at the moment. There is actually quite a lot of stuff that I do that's productive and useful.
Yeah.
But I'd say in a lot of instances, this might be controversial, that you're wrong if you're telling yourself that. Because if you actually look hypercritically at what you do, and I did this, I used an application called Toggle Track. And I used it because it was free. I tracked literally everything over the course of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And the majority of the stuff that I was doing was rubbish. Yeah. I was boxing off tasks, and I had this feeling that I was hyper productive and I was absolutely amazing. But when I actually looked at the amount of value that I produced, it was pretty minimal. It comes back to 80-20, doesn't it? In that situation, probably 80% of my work wasn't creating the value that the other 20% of my work was, right? Yeah. So I think if we are all looking at things critically, there's probably a shit ton more that you can automate than you expected.
And there's a whole lot more that as a business can do and get more value from you that you're not doing. I've never gone to any business where they said, we're absolutely happy, everyone's working at full capacity, generating absolute maximum value, and we've got our costs under control. It's just, no company in the world ever says that.
No.
Least of all Twitter.
Because it's always the next thing, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
You solve that problem and then another one comes up. And then you solve that one and then another one comes up. So it's
the way it goes.
It's a vicious cycle.
So, bookkeepers and accountants are listening. They're watching you. They're going to want to know.
Always watching.
Always watching. But we always try to we need to get some practical aspects out of this, because we've had a fantastic conversation, but we need to get down brass tacks. So you're an accounting firm, you're a bookkeeper, accountant, you may be a founder in a small firm, you might be part of a bigger firm. You're trying to spend your time working on your firm rather than in it. Priority. You've got to maintain excellent client engagement. You've got to reach out and find new clients. You've got to constantly attract potential new staff. And you've always got to be worried about the bottom line, price. So price, profit, those being the main priorities. what are the real practical things then, do you think, that we could, advice that we can give bookkeepers and accountants for using ChatGPT today? Things that can actually switch this podcast off. Don't yet, because of course
don't do that.
the fun stuff's coming next.
Get to the end of the episode.
And other stuff. But what's the real? Give us the top. I don't know, top 3 things. So let's say, for example,
Might not be top 3. So
right, top 25 then.
Sorry, what you're essentially saying there is, Adam, you've rambled too much. Actually, give us something actionable. No, that's fine. We can do that. We can do that. So
AI would have got straight to that.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, cut out the niceties. What am I doing? What do you need me to do? Fine. So the first bit ties into what we've already been talking about. So the best exercise you can do is to try and map what you do and don't do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all of the activities that I may do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Okay.
And then rank them.
Okay. What tool should they use for that?
So it could be a spreadsheet.
Okay.
Accountants love spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Finance loves spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. I try and avoid them, but I still love them. No matter how many posts I say you don't need them anymore. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everybody is. I'm not alone. So yeah, that could be the easiest when, so on the left you put your activities, and then on the right is the ranking. Is
like an
this
activity-based analysis.
Yeah. Is this a low, medium, or high value activity? There's a bit of thought as to where the value is, because it's obviously based on your role. So if my value is reducing costs, that is obviously going to be the highest priority. What's the quickest win? And we talk about it all the time in terms of 80-20. There's probably some activities that account for the majority of your salary. Yeah. And some that don't, right? It's the difference between like a £5 an hour activity or a £500 an hour activity, right? So it helps to think in those terms. And once you've mapped that is then the platform for you to be making decisions on what you then do. Because those ones that are in the low category, and do the low first before you go into the medium, there might be some low-hanging fruit that you can get there. So if I am spending a huge amount of time merging spreadsheets together, or trawling through data, you can then say, right, is there a tool that's going to help me with this? What a lot of people do sometimes is they go to the extreme and they say, we need to reinvent all of our systems. Yeah. That's not my recommendation initially.
Thank God for that.
Yeah. Optimization is the first bit, because if you free up a little bit of time, then you've got more time to free up more time, and it comes back to that incremental approach, right?
Yeah.
So if it is that, then you could say, right, well, I spend a lot of time taking this file, copying it to here and doing whatever. And I know you guys do this from an automation perspective, but you could get ChatGPT to write a very simple bit of code for you that will merge files from these different locations, for example. That's a very simple example of just a copy and paste exercise that you could get rid of straight away. Whether it's creating Python code, VBA code, or anything like that, the tools can help you produce that to automate that at a very simple level. When it comes to the kind of the softer stuff, I mentioned one example of producing presentations. If part of your job is to produce a monthly board pack that is then presented, how can you cut out a lot of the initial work that goes into that? So is there a tool that helps you produce the structure? Yeah. And then next, is there a tool that will help you with some of the formatting? Because if you actually pull apart the components of a presentation, the time isn't actually putting the structure together. The time is on the visuals, visualizing data and all that sort of stuff. And there's all sorts of tools that will help you produce the graphics that make that exercise a little bit quicker. Yeah. And then if you find the other bits that are trickier, the sticking on the data topic, and again, mentioned this previously as well, is there a way that you can chain your data to an AI tool that's going to help you surface insights? Yeah. That might not be a low value activity that you're looking to automate. That might be a high value activity that you're looking to enhance.
And accentuate
yeah.
it, yeah.
So it's not really a number of steps, but I guess step one is map your activities and rank them in terms of value. Then starting with the lowest value, most time consuming ones, then look at ways that you can automate that. Yeah. It might not even be an AI tool.
Yeah.
It could be another application. It could just be a little bit of automation. It could
be a bot for that.
Yeah, it could be a bot for that. There could be a bot for
Shameless
that.
plug.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
Absolutely.
I know.
Yeah, and then you can just work up on that. And then you are pushing the power curve towards the higher value activities.
Yeah.
So you're spending the majority of your time there.
Yeah. Cool.
Is that helpful?
Absolutely.
One question then, actually, with you work with a lot of people in bring a lot of people in and you have a lot of discussions, kind of bringing them up to speed with AI and its capabilities. But do you find there's kind of a mindset shift that people need, or that you see them go on as you start to explain the capabilities of it? They just kind of see the headlines and, oh, it's this amazing thing, but when they actually get to see what they can use it for, does that...
Yeah, there is an element of seeing is believing. There are always people that are just hugely resistant, and no matter what they see, they will always resist. I think that's becoming less and less now. I think people are becoming more open to technology in general. But the mindset shift is not in the thinking that we have to adopt all of this immediately and straight away. The mindset shift is, how do we build awareness of it? How do we learn about it? And then make a better decision about how we employ it. So the best thing people can do is just become more familiar with what's out there. You know? And again, you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow Christian Martinez at Kraft Heinz. He's really good. Follow Nicola Boucher, who's doing a lot on ChatGPT at the moment. There's tons of us that are talking about all of this sort of stuff. So that will help with the mindset. Sorry.
So this is twisted out one.
That will help, because the more you're exposed to it, you know, and it comes back to that, you know, you are the sum of the people that you surround yourself with the most. So before you do anything, you know, just immerse yourself in it, and then you will start seeing opportunities, especially if you've got your task map, right? You know, so I've seen this. Could that work? But again, don't jump in straight away. You know, what problem are you solving? What is the outcome that we're looking to achieve from this? Because again, if you can't answer those questions, there's no point in adopting anything.
Yeah. So we'll put a link to your wonderful PDF, the guide to ChatGPT.
Okay, yeah,
we will.
Yeah, so everyone can get access to that.
Yeah.
And you yourself.
Fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries.
Very good.
Very good.
Lovely.
Right.
Is it that time?
It is probably that time for jingles and games. It's probably not the best way to describe that, actually.
Okay.
Let's just go straight into the game. I'm not going to say that again. Right. I had an idea before, but I had to switch up a little bit because ChatGPT wasn't up to the task, unfortunately.
Really?
All right, blame the
You
tool.
disappoint me.
Blame the tool.
No, it is still ChatGPT based. So we're basically just going to do a trivia quiz that ChatGPT has come up with.
Okay.
So we're going to see who wins, basically, out of us or the AI.
Oh.
I do have a jingle. Oh god, it's quite loud.
Is this a jingle or a festival?
What do you mean what festivals are you going to?
None.
What did you call this section again? You had a name for this one.
Saturday Night Fever.
That was terrible, Phil.
That was quite long as well.
You wrote a bad jingle.
I didn't write
Philip.
I didn't write the jingle.
You made the wrong choice.
I've made terrible choices.
ChatGPT wouldn't have got that wrong.
Oh, just replace me.
No.
Right, anyway, we'll go for 5 questions and we'll see how many we get right. So the first question that ChatGPT has come up with is, who formulated the theory of general relativity?
Oh.
That is Einstein's.
Anyone answer? It's
Albert. Oh, sorry, I thought you were...
So we're a team.
I thought
we're
we
a
were
team.
right.
It's
I thought we were going
us
to go
versus the
one...
AI.
Oh, okay,
It's University
sorry.
Challenge, right?
Universally challenged, I think is the correct.
That's what I was looking for. That's what you named it.
Ta-da!
God. Okay, Einstein. Correct. Well done. Albert Einstein indeed formulated the theory of general relativity. Great job. Let's move to the next question. In computer science, what does the acronym HTTP stand for?
Hypertext.
Something protocol.
Pass.
It's It is hypertext something protocol. I don't know what the second T's for.
Terminal?
Terminal you want to go with?
How do we know whether the AI wins or not? We've not got the
Well,
AI.
AI's never wrong.
If we get less than half the questions right, then
Okay, yeah.
we're shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay, fine.
What we get? Terminal? That's not right, but...
No, it's hypertext.
Transmission?
Oh,
Could be...
Transfer.
transfer, I think.
Try transfer.
Yeah, hypertext transfer protocol. I think that's it. More like it.
Proto...
It's close anyway. 3 of those are definitely right. Which is as good as any AI. 3/4 correct.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good enough.
Oh, okay.
And then ask Google.
It told me I was wrong, and then it just put hyper and text next to each other. It is hypertext transfer protocol.
Yes!
Basically. Let's
Oh,
go.
amazing. There we
Right.
go.
What is the largest organ in the human body? I asked for university grade questions. It's given me what's the largest organ in the
Well,
human
let's ask
body.
the most recently graduated university student.
What's the largest organ in the human body? Keep it clean.
It depends. Depends who you're talking about, doesn't it? Oh dear.
That ain't an organ.
I think it's your skin, isn't it?
I think it is skin, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it not the?
That's absolutely
No,
correct.
skin
Yeah,
is the
absolutely
biggest
correct.
There
Yeah.
you go.
That
is
also
considered-
auto-generates, by the way. Your skin auto-generates.
7 years.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
We're all snakes.
In more ways than many.
Who is considered the father of modern computer science?
Computer science. I'm gonna have to confer with my colleagues.
I'm not sure about this one.
It's
Because I'm
it's not Alan Turing.
He that was a Turing test, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
I
that's
think it could.
AI related, isn't it?
But yeah. I know there's
It's the
another
best
one in terms
answer
of,
we've got.
in terms of AI.
I
There's
have
another one, but I
nothing.
can't remember his name.
Anything, Aaron?
Go with Turing.
Blank.
I don't
Yeah,
think it is.
we'll
but
do
Great
Turing.
job.
Yeah, yeah.
That is correct.
There we go.
Come
There we
on.
go, Dan.
What is the smallest unit of memory in a computer?
bit.
Bit
a byte.
Oh no, it is a
Bit.
bit, isn't it?
Bit.
Yeah. Bit comes before
Byte.
byte. Yeah.
Mm.
Do you get the spelling
There we
of that
go.
right?
Absolutely. I got it right. You need to.
Christ for that.
Simmer
I mean,
down.
we live in a
I'm screen
technology
recording this,
company.
so
We
we'll
get those
see.
things wrong. We haven't got much hope, have we?
Right, 5 from 5. I think we won that one.
AI sucks.
Unlucky AI.
Don't bother with it. It's crap.
University level questions, my arse. Right, well there we go.
There was definitely some team effort there.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, that leaves us with. Oh no, actually, we'll do the. I'll hand it over to you, Aaron. Actually, for the presentation of the. Hello.
Excuse me. As is tradition with every guest on the podcast.
Goodness.
I would
Yeah.
like
Do
to
you know anyone
present
that needs a T-shirt?
with your very own. You've now an official member of the VIB community.
I'm a VIB.
You are.
Very important.
Keep
Beanie.
it clean.
That's amazing.
Phil. It's a VIBT.
Where did the name Beanies come from?
Bean counters.
Ah. How did I not see that?
I wouldn't know that.
Thank you. I'm
Thank
very
you.
privileged. You want me to put it on? Or?
No, you don't. You don't have to put it up now. No.
No, this isn't an Only Bots podcast.
Okay.
Oh,
haven't got that
there's a great business idea.
That comes
that's,
after the podcast.
Yeah. Well, hang on.
Onlybots.
No.
With what is that? Fembots and membots?
Oh.
I would like to move on to the next section, please.
What you want? Snack attack.
We love it. And this is where
Yeah, this is down to you.
guest
Yes.
Mr. Shilton,
I'll introduce my snacks. My
Please.
childhood snacks.
one at a time.
Did you, when you were at school, did you have a nickname?
No.
Oh.
That's not the answer you're expecting.
I can give you the nickname I was given, but I can't say it because it would offend a lot of people.
Okay.
That's fine. Let's leave it there.
Yeah.
Because I affectionately refer to you, and I hope you're not offended, the Schultzmeister.
Oh, wow. Schultzmeister.
The Schultzmeister.
Do you like that?
I do like it.
You're not offended by that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because when we talk, it's Schultzmeister's coming tomorrow.
Oh, amazing.
You like that?
I've been called Schultz a couple of times, but
Yeah.
Schultzmeister takes it to like the next level.
There we
That's
go.
what we do here, bots, for that.
Taking it to the next level. Right, well,
There you go.
Schultzmeister's got some treats for us.
Ooh.
Do we want to... Can the camera see the treats?
I'm sure it can.
I'll explain. So this is a mini flump. I was grossly disappointed because flumps and you could probably still
I
get
remember
them.
the flumps.
It'd be
The TV
ginormous.
programme. Oh no, I was talking about the TV program.
No.
No, oh, okay.
No, so
the big marshmallow.
yeah, absolutely. So
Oh.
these are mini flumps. I hope you can still. I couldn't find any in the shop, but they used to get them like. Well, I'm saying this big. It was this big as a child, but it's probably. Do you see what I mean?
I think it's relative. Yeah, you were smaller.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But take a mini flump.
Thank you.
You see, when I was a kid, back in the 70s, there was a television program called The Flumps. And
Okay.
they were these like fluffy ball-shaped things,
Mhm.
characters. You had Grandad Flump and Mummy and Dad Flump and
Are you all right,
children.
Aaron?
So it's a marshmallow.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But it's a tasty marshmallow.
Why do you look so confused by the marshmallow then? You're like,
Has it got the seal of approval?
he's a tough critic, the Gen Z over there.
right.
He's a very tough
not
critic.
bad.
Do you know what that needs? A wooden stick and a fire.
Yeah.
But then that's not
Agreed.
bad.
And flumps are good.
Now.
Then we have the curly whirly,
I
which
grew up
is
with those
which is
as
a
well.
classic. Yeah. Again, pretty sure they used to be a lot bigger, but
were.
I could have just.
No, I'd
grown.
agree with you on that because
I
when I
think
was
they
a
were
kid in the
definitely bigger.
70s,
Yeah.
they were definitely larger.
Yeah.
They were wider as well.
Probably trying to. Wider. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I have to make a confession.
Oh, you never had a curly
I don't
whirly?
think I've ever had a curly
There
whirly.
you go. Pull your boots.
I haven't had a curly whirly in about 35
Have a
years.
flump. Have a flump. You can have my curly whirly as well.
It's all right.
I've had too many in my lifetime.
I don't think there's any more in there.
Oh, you'll have to get them from the
tiny.
bag over there.
It's all right. Don't worry.
Yeah, because there were at least. Yeah, it was. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
That's
and
what a flump- that's
herein
what
lies
one
the
used to be like.
problem. yeah. Herein lies
Yeah.
the problem. So,
Yeah.
so I remember I used to get home from school in my school uniform with my nice white shirt, and first thing I'd do is I'd go get I've forgotten what it's called now, curly whirly from the cupboard, and I'd sit on the sofa and watch some TV, and my mum would watch as the chocolate fell all over my white shirt, and I just remember the conversations that were, you ruined another shirt. But it didn't stop me from eating the curly whirlies. So that was kind of a tradition, whether it was a flump or a curly whirly. I'd sit down in front of the TV straight after school and just stuff my face full of sugar. That's how it worked.
Lovely.
Do you know what? That's the first sweet that I've had that I haven't had for about 30 odd years
Yeah.
that tastes like I remember.
Oh god,
Yeah.
he's not going to throw it.
No, I'm not going to throw that. I genuinely like that.
We used to
And
have
it tastes
these.
the same as my memory of it.
We used to have these in our house all the time because my mum loves curly whirlies, but my dad always used to eat her curly whirlies, and she always used to get really annoyed. And he'd always blame the kids.
Yes. Very good. And then this was
We
the
know it was you, Jonathan.
This was the closest I could find because I didn't actually have these. I had something similar. I can't remember the official name, but it was like the packet was split in three, and one of the sections was a stick.
Yeah.
And
I
then you
remember,
had
yeah.
two flavours of
It
sherbet,
was like
and then you
blue,
could
I think it was like blue and pink.
yeah,
wasn't it? Like
absolutely, yeah.
inside,
And then you could dip it in whichever one. So I couldn't find any one of those. I don't know whether they're still a dip dab, but this is basically a strawberry lolly that you dip in sugar. So
I do remember these.
yeah, so they're good as well. The other treats that I couldn't find that I would have liked to have bought, one of them you can't get anymore, even though I think they did a reissue that was healthier. Turkey Twizzlers.
Oh god.
So it's not a snack.
Yeah.
It was a full-on meal. I used to live for the Turkey Twizzler days at school. First in the queue, but then obviously I think it was Jamie Oliver that kicked up a fuss and said all of this food is really bad for kids. Stop doing it.
What do you know?
Have you seen that video though,
That looks
where he
different.
goes into a school and he shows them how they make turkey twizzlers?
No, I didn't see that.
It's quite fun. It's a very old video, but basically
Yeah.
he goes in and he goes, it's all the bits of the chicken and the turkey you don't want to eat, and he puts it all in a blender and he
Yeah.
makes it into this like little nugget shape, and he's like, who'd still eat this? And all the kids are like, yeah.
Yeah, I
They
would
all
do
put their
that.
hands up, and he's just like, oh,
Don't worry, I'm not snorting it. I'm smelling it, not snorting it.
Yeah. So the Turkey Twizzlers, they were always amazing.
Wow, that tastes like I remember as well.
And then have you got one?
Ooh, sweet.
Have you got one?
No,
Would you like to?
you can pass that over. I've just tried the sugar, but I didn't actually.
Yeah, I didn't lick
There
the
you go.
lolly.
So there's.
And the other one,
Good choices.
and I didn't go to the right shop, so it's a last shout out to the Froob.
Oh, the Froob. Frozen frubes. I love a frozen frube.
Did you ever have a frube, Dan?
This is after my time.
Oh, right,
yeah,
okay, fine.
Yeah.
So a frube...
I think I was
and
out chasing women and drink
Yeah.
at one point. Not sweets.
I don't think you can still get them, but frube is and I don't know whether maybe fruit like with tube merged together, frube, but it was basically fruit yogurt in a tube, right? And it came in a really long, how do I describe it? Almost like an ice lolly pack, right? But it'd be yogurt.
Oh, yeah.
So they'd slot into the lunch box, and then you'd rip off one end, and then you'd squeeze it into your mouth, right? But I made a fool of myself at school one day. We'll keep this clean. And I'm going to try and explain this without making this really, really dirty. But obviously, the correct way to eat them was to completely rip off the top and just to squeeze. But we found. So go on the OnlyFans channel.
There we go.
We found that if you just tore it a little bit to the point where there was a bit of air, and then you squeezed it really hard, it would pop, and it would be more exciting. So you get more of an explosion as opposed to a squeeze.
Stop. Jesus Christ.
Anyway, so I was sat in the middle of the lunch hall at school, which were those horrible tables where all of the little black stools were connected to the table. And I did the small slit at the top, and I squeezed really hard, and the wrong end exploded.
Oh no.
And it went all over my black blazer, all over my black trousers. So I was basically covered in white yogurt for the remainder of the day.
And this is the story you've stuck to ever since.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I'm
that's
pretty
the
sure
story.
they got banned in our school for a little bit because people kept like stamping on them.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
you've been frubed. Like, people would frube people.
Ah.
You just put them on the floor and like stamp on
Yeah.
them, and then
We didn't have that. The only thing that got banned was those. We had yo-yos banned at one time because people were hurting themselves with them. I can't remember. There was too many yo-yos. I can't remember. But the other one was like those crackers that used to throw at the floor.
Yeah.
You know, that used to explode because people used to throw them behind the teachers and make them shit themselves essentially. We were shits at school. Quite often made teachers cry. Not by covering them in fruit, but just by being generally horrible children. But yeah. Anyway, blast from the past, eh?
yeah, they were some good snacks.
Mm.
And that was Snack Attack.
Dirty snack attack.
It was a bit dirty, actually.
X-rated
Yeah.
snack attack. Wow.
Late night Snack Attack.
Yeah, that might have to have a rating.
That might have to be content,
E
watch
for
out for this
explicit.
one. Yeah.
E for explicit, yeah.
You really haven't had much sleep, have you?
Oh, well,
Oh dear.
Aaron, try and follow that with a wrap up of the podcast,
Should I
if
take
you
us
would
out,
please.
Thank you for joining us again, Beanies. Make sure to catch us every second Monday and Friday for the new release of the podcast, and make sure to join our communities, our Beanies, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.
That's a wrap.